Hello, welcome everyone. My name is Aubrey Daimler. I am a certified holistic health coach with Peace with Endo at peacewithendo.com. I support women with endometriosis who want to manage their pain through natural methods, things like diet, lifestyle, and positive thinking. I want to thank you so much for joining me for tonight's workshop, Tune Into Your Cycle. I'm super excited about tonight's session because I'm going to share with you how to tune into your personal menstrual cycle by charting your primary fertility signs. I started charting my menstrual cycle about 2 years ago, and since then I've gathered so much vital information about my body from this simple practice. It's given me awareness about the ebb and flow of my hormones in the different parts of my cycle, which more often than not relates to the ebb and flow of my emotions. It's also helped me to pinpoint imbalances in my cycle and has been a great instrument for measuring the health of my cycle in conjunction with different changes I've made along my healing journey. Initially, I started charting as a way to assist me in getting pregnant. My husband and I had been trying for about a year with no success, and I came to the realization that I really had little knowledge about how the whole pregnancy thing works. I started taking birth control when I was 17 years old, and I was on it for the following decade. I thought that once I got off of the pill that I would get pregnant. Turns out things weren't that simple. There were times during the beginnings of my fertility journey when I was sure that I was pregnant. I had all the symptoms, sore boobs, emotional upswings, and I thought that my period was late. This was concluded by me counting the days of my cycle, which I thought were supposed to be 28 days, right? This is what I'd heard was the length of the menstrual cycle. Anything past that time I considered late. And with all the extra symptoms, I was just sure that I was pregnant. At times, I was so convinced that I'd pick up a couple of pregnancy tests, but they would always come back negative, and my period would show up shortly after, more painful than ever. The whole process was stressful for me, and I think the unknowing part of the whole pregnancy process was the worst part. Luckily, the act of charting your cycle takes a lot of the guesswork out of the fertility process. I learned how to do this with the assistance of a highly recommended book called Taking Charge of Your Fertility by Toni Weschler. I wish that I had read this book much earlier in my life. I became conscious of the fact that I really knew little about my menstrual cycle. There I was in my early 30s with little knowledge about what was going on in my body each month. To expand on the knowledge I'm going to share tonight, I definitely recommend reading this one. So why should you chart your cycle? Charting your cycle comes with a lot of benefits. It provides a closer examination into what's happening each month. It will help you recognize the ebb and flow of your cycle and how that relates to the ebb and flow of your emotions. The menstrual cycle is like a fine-tuned symphony with hormonal peaks and valleys, and it's helpful to know what's going on and when. Once I learned how to tune into mine, it helped me recognize that I tend to feel more anxious, more worried, with things kind of blown up in a greater sense of stress than is needed when I am nearing ovulation and prior to my period. As I move down my healing journey, these feelings have calmed down quite a bit, but they still rear their heads sometimes. And when they do, I stop and correlate where I am in my cycle. And more often than not, it is during these times. This awareness has helped me put into perspective my emotions in relation to the hormonal peaks and valleys during these times. this has helped release some stress. Like it or not, our hormones definitely impact us, and if you are like me with endometriosis, then things are already out of whack. Hormones have a definite role in how we feel, both physically and emotionally during our cycles. So charting your cycle helps you to see if you're ovulating or not. This is beneficial for detecting hormonal imbalances that may be at play, and it's also great knowledge to have if you're trying to get pregnant or wanting to prevent pregnancy without birth control or other contraception. By charting your cycle, you can tell when your period is coming, and you'll get a heads up the day or two before it starts. As a woman with endometriosis, I appreciate having this knowledge, as I like to know when flow is coming so I can avoid making other plans that day and really bring attention to slowing down and resting during this time. Charting your cycle is also helpful in spotting irregularities. It helped me to discover that I had low progesterone levels and thyroid issues. Ultimately, through the simple act of charting your fertility signs each cycle, you're tapping into this beautiful symphony, and it's really empowering to understand your body on this deeper level. My intention with this presentation is to permanently change your relationship with your menstrual cycle. But in order for this to work, you must be here with me 100%, with the intention to change your relationship with your own monthly symphony. I know that this can be tricky if you suffer with pain during your cycle, but by connecting with this flow inside of us, things can come to light. I need you to listen and take part fully, and take the knowledge tonight and commit to taking a couple of minutes each day to note your primary fertility signs. This is a simple practice, but it takes consistency, and it's easy to fall out of routine. The first step to tuning in is setting an intention to pay attention. Some of what you will learn today may be new to you. If you find yourself thinking, yes, I knew that, that's great. But ask yourself, how conscious are you of that on a daily basis? What actions are you taking to support yourself in the face of this knowledge? Awareness is key, and when it comes to making real change. Understanding and applying this knowledge is essential to tapping into your own health. Tonight, I'm going to share a quick overview of the menstrual cycle and its hormonal symphony, the primary fertility signs that your body reflects during each phase of the cycle, how to chart those signs, and how to use this information to troubleshoot issues in your cycle that you can then share with other health practitioners that are familiar with what is called the fertility awareness model, which is essentially the act of charting and being aware of your body's fertility signs. When I first met with my acupuncturist, I had over a year's worth of charting with clear irregularities. This information helped her to build a plan for correction. Before we get deeper into the logistics of charting, I want to do a quick rundown of the hormonal ebb and flow of your menstrual cycle. This way we have a foundation of how things are supposed to flow to help further acknowledge if issues are present. On a simple level, the whole purpose of your menstrual cycle is to achieve pregnancy, whether you actually want this or not. The whole process is designed for reproduction. The first half of your menstrual cycle is called your follicular phase and starts with follicular stimulating hormone, or FSH. This hormone stimulates the maturity of 15 to 20 eggs in your ovaries. And each egg is enclosed in its own follicle that produces estrogen. Estrogen is necessary for ovulation, which occurs when one ovary releases an egg from the most dominant follicle. Now, this process takes anywhere from 8 days to 2 weeks or more. High levels of estrogen trigger a surge of luteinizing hormone, or LH. This LH surge causes the egg to burst through your ovarian wall, where it is picked up by these finger-like projections of your fallopian tubes, which then pull the egg in. to one of your fallopian tubes. After the egg is released from your ovary, the follicle that held it remains behind. It attaches to your ovarian wall and becomes a corpus luteum that starts to release progesterone. The days following ovulation are called your luteal phase. Due to the fixed lifespan of the corpus luteum, the amount of days in this phase of your cycle should be consistent. Therefore, ovulation determines the length of your menstrual cycle. Your corpus luteum should have a lifespan of 12 to 16 days. Anything less than this amount of time indicates that there's likely issues with your progesterone levels. Now, if fertilization of your egg does occur, if fertilization of your egg does not occur, then levels of progesterone eventually drop, which signals to the body to break down the corpus luteum. When this happens, menstruation begins, which indicates the start to a new cycle. With menstruation, the lining of your uterus is shed. Now, if the egg is fertilized and pregnancy happens, then the corpus luteum hangs around into the beginnings of pregnancy. It continues to secrete progesterone to help maintain your uterine lining for 8 to 10 weeks, after which the placenta takes over progesterone production. Occasionally, your ovaries may not release an egg at all, and ovulation does not happen. This is termed anovulation and is common when cysts are on your ovaries. Follicular cysts happen in that first half of your cycle, and they're often stimulated by high insulin levels from consuming too many foods with a high glycemic load. Anovulation is common with women who have polycystic ovary syndrome or PCOS. If you don't ovulate, then there's no chance for pregnancy. Now, there are two primary fertility signs your body shows to help you distinguish whether you're in your follicular or your luteal phase of your cycle, and thus the times when you're fertile and not fertile. These two signs are waking basal body temperature, or BBT, and cervical fluid. Let's talk about waking BBT first. During the first part of your cycle, in the follicular phase, your body temperatures are suppressed by estrogen. Temperatures during this time generally range from 97 to 97.7 degrees Fahrenheit. My temperatures tend to be higher than this suggested range. I'm generally at 97.9 to 98 degrees in my follicular phase. The thyroid plays a big role in maintaining body temperatures. So when I saw that my body temperatures were higher than what was considered normal, I decided to get my thyroid levels checked. I found out that I have Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune condition where my body is essentially attacking my thyroid gland. This can cause thyroid levels to swing back and forth between overactive and underactive. By tracking your BBT, you may be able to spot thyroid issues as well. Lower body temperatures, less than 97.3 consistently, could indicate an underactive thyroid. Higher temperatures could indicate an overactive thyroid. So once ovulation happens, BBT rises upwards. This is due to the influx of the warming hormone progesterone. As progesterone peaks in the menstrual cycle, your waking body temperatures should remain elevated during the length of the luteal phase. Post-ovulatory temperatures are generally 97.8 degrees Fahrenheit or higher. Mine tend to be closer to 98.3. Once the temperature rises, the days to follow should be a consistent number, give or take a day. Once you chart your cycle for a few months, you'll start to notice your average luteal phase length. A healthy luteal phase should be anywhere from 12 to 16 days. Less than 12 days indicates progesterone issues. Waking body temperatures can be helpful in predicting how long the menstrual cycle will be, as it can identify a delayed ovulation. Ultimately, ovulation determines the length of your cycle, as your luteal phase should be a pretty consistent number. If ovulation is delayed, then you're going to have a longer cycle. Having this knowledge helped me understand those times when I thought my cycle was late after 28 days, when in reality I was ovulating later in my cycle than day 14. If temperatures remain elevated for longer than 18 days, then pregnancy is evident. How awesome is that? Your body lets you know these things. No more stressful pregnancy test encounters. There are outside factors that can impact timing of ovulation, causing a delay or even absence of ovulation. Things like stress, travel, moving, or illness. Remember, the purpose of the menstrual cycle and ultimately ovulation is aimed at achieving pregnancy. If your body is stressed out or sick, then it's not a great time to bring in a new life. Your body recognizes this. Waking basal body temperatures help you determine when you ovulated, since temperatures rise afterwards. Now, this isn't much help if you're trying to pinpoint ovulation for conception purposes or trying to avoid intercourse near this time if you're not wanting to get pregnant. But no worries, your body gives off another obvious sign of fertility and pending ovulation. That is your daily cervical fluid. To be honest, the whole cervical fluid factor was totally new to me. I never understood the recurring cream and wetness in my panties that fluctuated each month. I thought that I was getting recurring infections. Come to find out that this fluid is a totally natural part of your menstrual cycle and an indicator of fertility. Since I was on the pill for a decade, my body wasn't producing much cervical fluid. Once I got off the pill late in my 20s, I was definitely awakened to it. Now, fertile female cervical fluid is similar to a man's semen, but men are fertile all the time, while women are only fertile for a few days out of the month around ovulation. This increase in cervical fluid is designed to provide nourishment and mobility for the sperm to get to an egg to fertilize. After you get your period, rising estrogen levels influence this cervical fluid. As ovulation approaches, cervical fluid increases. You can see here the traditional phase of cervical fluid from the start of a new cycle at menstruation to the end. The most fertile time is when your cervical fluid resembles raw egg whites. It has a slippery feeling and can even stretch. It can also be really watery. You may not be able to see anything, but rather feel the sensation of slippery, wet, and lubricated fluid. You may actually feel it before you see it. Oftentimes, when you are most fertile, cervical fluid will leave a symmetrical round circle in your panties. This is due to the high concentration of water. Very lubricative cervical fluid oftentimes comes out during a bowel movement. Now, after estrogen peaks, then cervical fluid changes abruptly and dryness returns. This dryness should remain the rest of your cycle, though in the day or two prior to your period, you may notice a very wet, watery sensation due to the drop in progesterone, which precedes the disintegration of the lining of your uterus. Your body can give off other signals of pending ovulation that you can see here, such as mid-cycle spotting, pain or achiness near your ovaries, increased libido, water retention, heightened sense of smell or taste, and breast tenderness. When the egg breaks through the wall during ovulation, a lot of times this can cause sharp pains. With endometriosis and the influx of estrogen levels during ovulation, can mean more pain and cramping. Now, we're going to get into the logistics on how to chart your two primary fertility signs. I recommend using a charting application to make this process easier. I use the free one available at tcoyf.com. This one is connected to Tony Weschler's book, Taking Charge of Your Fertility. Another popular application is fertilityfriend.com. So you can start charting at any time during your cycle. Once your next period starts, that counts as day 1. To start charting your cycle, start by taking your waking basal body temperature. So all you have to do is take your temperature upon waking before doing anything else. If you can do it while you're still in bed, then all the better. Try and take it at the same time every day, give or take an hour. Remember that the later you take it, the higher it will be. You can take your temperature either orally or vaginally. Just make sure that you keep whichever way you take it consistent. It should be noted that higher waking BBTs in your follicular phase could be impacted by different factors, such as having a fever, drinking alcohol the night before, getting less than 3 hours of consecutive sleep, or waking up at a substantially different time. The later that you wake up, the warmer your temperature will be. Your temperatures could also be higher if you used an electric blanket or a heating pad the night before. After ovulation, temperatures rise quickly over what is called the cover line. The cover line is the division between pre-ovulatory or follicular phase temperatures compared to post-ovulatory or luteal phase temperatures. The temperature shift should be pretty obvious to spot, but the cover line helps differentiate this. It's the pink line that you can see here. So this part would have been the follicular phase, temperature rise, luteal phase. This pink line is the cover line. So after your period ends, you want to take note of the first 6 days of temperatures. Then identify the first day that the temperature rises at least 0.2 of a degree above that highest temperature. So in this case, here was my highest temperature, and this is the first day that it rose. Here's the cover line. There's the division. Now, if you use one of the charting applications that I mentioned, it will help you figure out where your cover line is and help you differentiate between your follicular and luteal phases. Don't pay attention to higher temperatures during your period. These are irrelevant in determining the cover line. It's not unusual to have high temperatures during menstruation due to residual effects of progesterone. Also take note of outlier temperatures that could be artificially high due to other factors that we discussed previously. And remember that temperatures tend to rise every hour that you sleep in. To get a most accurate reading, I found it helpful for me to take my temperature at the same time every day. It's just become a habit, something that I do every morning before anything else. Once your temperature rises, it should stay elevated for the same amount of time before your period starts. Once you see a clear temperature shift, then you can predict the arrival of your period by counting ahead by the number of days that your luteal phase usually is. And again, the luteal phase should range anywhere from 12 to 16 days. Now, on the day that your period is going to begin, you should notice a temperature drop. This usually happens for me the day before, although sometimes it does happen that morning. Again, this is a heads up that, hey, my period's going to start today. Better get prepared for that. Hopefully that all makes sense. The second factor that you'll want to take note of is your daily cervical fluid. Get in the habit of checking your cervical fluid when you go to the bathroom. Simply run a tissue across and note sensations. Is it dry, sticky, wet? If it's dry, then the tissue won't pass smoothly. As you approach ovulation, the tissue should glide easily. So check at least 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, and night. Notice if you feel like you're sitting in a puddle. This is a sign that you're super fertile. Again, very fertile cervical fluid slippery and wet feeling. Now don't check if you're aroused, as cervical fluid is wet during this time anyways. Fertile cervical fluid, it's most likely to flow out after a bowel movement, so pay attention to that. Now, the peak day is the last day of lubricative vaginal sensations. This day is when you're at the peak of fertility. This is the day before or the day of ovulation. The peak day is often 1 or 2 days before your temperatures shift. This is the best time to get busy if you're trying to get pregnant. If you don't want to get pregnant, then avoid intercourse during these times. So essentially the peak day is determined after it happens. Ovulation is confirmed when you have 3 high temperatures in a row above the cover line. If the body does not ovulate, then consistent cervical fluid may be present as the body continues to try to ovulate. So to quickly review the steps of charting your cycle, you'll want to take your temperature every day upon waking before doing anything else. Take it at the same time each day, give or take an hour. Take your temperature orally or vaginally, but always be consistent in your method. Note any unusual events, such as stress or illness, that could raise your temperatures higher than normal. After your period ends, as you are charting your temperatures, notice the highest of the previous 6 days. Then identify the first day your temperatures rise at least 0.2 of a degree above that highest temperature. Your cover line is 0.1 of a degree above the highest of those 6 days. Check your cervical fluid after menstruation ends. Focus on vaginal sensations during the day, and try and check every time you use the bathroom. Check at least 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, and night. And don't check when you're aroused. Note the patterns in your underwear during the day. Again, super lubricative fluid is going to leave a wet, round circle. Pay attention to whether you see cervical fluid after a bowel movement, since that's when it's most likely to flow out. Now that we have a better understanding of how things are supposed to work in the menstrual cycle and the indicators of your fertility, including ovulation, I want to take a moment and share some temperature patterns that could indicate that there is an issue in your cycle. Over time, I picked up trends in my own charts that indicated issues in my luteal phase. The luteal phase should be at least 12 days long. On average, mine lasted only 9 to 10 days. You can see here that this month it was only 10 days after my temperature rise. This meant that my body wasn't producing enough progesterone. Other symptoms of this included spotting a few days prior to the start of my period. Now, endometriosis is an estrogen-dominant based condition. This means that your body has either too much estrogen or not enough progesterone to balance things out. Either case is not great if you're trying to get pregnant, as progesterone is necessary to hold a pregnancy. After charting for a couple of months, you'll start to pick up your own patterns. When I first started, I was obsessed over every little temperature change. You really have to look at the overall picture of things rather than the changes on a day-to-day basis. Look at the trends of your temperatures over time to detect issues. Anovulation is when your ovaries do not release a viable egg, so ovulation does not occur. If ovulation does not occur, then pregnancy cannot occur. Chronic anovulation is a pretty common cause of infertility. Again, ovulation is confirmed when you have 3 to 4 high temperatures after your temperature shift. On the screen now, you can see an example of a cycle with no ovulation. You can see that there's no clear temperature shift. So anovulatory cycles can range from very short to exceedingly long. Oftentimes you may not get a period, or if you do, it'll be really light and short and relatively painless. This is actually just breakthrough bleeding. Since ovulation did not occur, it's not a real period. Now, 18 high temperatures indicate pregnancy. This is an example of my chart when I first achieved pregnancy. And once I achieved 18 high temperatures, I stopped charting. Now, another pattern that's common on pregnancy charts is what's called a triphasic pattern. So it generally means there's an upward pattern of temperatures. So here you can see my temperature shifted, and then it shifted again. That's really common on charts indicating pregnancy. Another thing to watch for is this little fallback rise. Anywhere on days 7 to 10 past ovulation is when implementation can occur. And if that happens, oftentimes there's a little bit of a temperature dip. And you can see it went back up. Unfortunately, I didn't hold this pregnancy. I was able to tell that a miscarriage was on the way with the huge temperature dip here. So just to quickly recap what we've covered, we talked about the beautiful hormonal symphony involved in your menstrual cycle. We talked about your two primary fertility signs, waking basal body temperatures and cervical fluid, and how to chart these signs to pinpoint if and when you are ovulating. If you have issues within your luteal phase, and how to recognize if you're pregnant, and the fertile times when you should avoid intercourse if you're not wanting to get pregnant. Again, I highly recommend picking up Toni Weschler's book, Taking Charge of Your Fertility, as she provides many more examples of charts and how to troubleshoot issues with your fertility. I do hope that this information that I shared tonight was helpful and a good overview to get you started on charting your fertility signs. It took me a while to figure out how to interpret my own charts. Luckily, I had some help from fellow endo sisters. If you get started on charting and are not sure exactly what you're seeing from your body's fertility signs, then I invite you to join the private support group I started on Facebook called Finding Peace with Endo. I would love to help you interpret your charts here. This is a safe, positive space with other fellow endo sisters there to support your healing journey. The information that I shared tonight falls in line with the lessons that I have compiled in my upcoming book called From Pain to Peace with Endo. These are lessons that I learned on my road to healing endometriosis, lessons that I wish I'd known from the start. Within the book, you'll learn how to eat to decrease inflammation in your body and why healthy digestion is key. I go into further detail about the interplay of your hormones in endometriosis, and you'll see why it's necessary to release toxins from your body and mind, and learn how to find peace and love for your body and that which is greater than your physical shell. I'm so excited to share this with you. The book has a scheduled release day of November 4th and will be available on Amazon.com. But it is available for pre-order now on my website at peacewithendo.com. I also offer one-on-one health coaching sessions. As a holistic health coach, I support women with endometriosis who want to manage their pain through natural methods, things like diet, lifestyle, and positive thinking. I create a supportive, motivating environment that will help you achieve your current and long-term health goals. I'm here to help you make gradual, lifelong changes down a path towards reduced pain, increased energy, and a life filled with positive rhythms. I'd like to invite you to a complimentary breakthrough session with me. If this is of interest, please shoot me an email at peacewithendo@gmail.com and we'll set up a time to chat. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to send me an email or message via Peace with Endo on Facebook or Twitter. And I want to thank you so much for sharing your time with me tonight. I hope that this was helpful, and I hope to connect with you further. Sending you all love and healing. Good night.